Shalom and Baruch Hashem and Baruch Habayim. Welcome to our advanced studies here at Congregation Mashiach Yisrael. My name is Scott Siskin, and tonight we're going to be studying our beloved Tanya, chapter 39. Mi yiftach latana b'tefila uvracha. Who would like to open us with prayer and a blessing?
Avinu Malkeinu, our Father, our King, we just ask you to bless this time of study as we open the Tanya, and it guides us and helps us to understand you, your word, ourselves better. Lord, grant to us your kokma, bina, v'da'at, your wisdom, your understanding, and your knowledge, and just help us to take hold of and grasp some of these concepts and ideas to help us in our relationship with you and in our lives and with each other. We give you all the honor and glory and thanks in Yeshua's name.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah.
Amen.
So, tonight we're going to be studying chapter 39. Chapter 39 of Tanya is amazing. It's beautiful. It's super precise. But to understand it fully, we're going to have to go and understand where it was that we've come from and where it is that we're going to. So, we may remember that not last week, or not last chapter that we studied, but the previous 3 chapters were a section, were a segment, were a unit unto themselves. Do we remember what that was about? We talked about the primacy or the most importance-ness of mitzvah, of actual physical deed mitzvahs. We said that
the service of God.
The service of God. There's nothing more important really than that.
It's still his notebook.
Yeah. Everyone should have good notebooks. So the idea is we need to do. This world is about doing. This is the world, as we're going to learn soon tonight, this is the world of action. God put us here in order to make this place a fit dwelling place for Him. We ask you to learn the term dira b'tachtonim, if we remember that. A dwelling place down here in the lowest physical world.
Probably more common would be tikkun ha'olam.
Tikkun olam?
It's the repairing or building up, fixing the world, perfecting the world.
And we
One mitzvah at a time
Mhm.
to make a dwelling place for God here.
And that's what we learned in those 3 chapters. And again, all of the good intentions in the world, all the good feelings, the love and the fear and everything intellectual and meditative that we can think about God and godliness, in the end of the day, is not going to elevate those sparks, right? It's not going to make this world a fit dwelling place. You can't build a house by thinking about it, right? You need to actually do. So, again, as they say, all the well wishes in the world aren't going to feed hungry people. You have to give them food, right? And you could have the greatest relationship with God that you can conjure in your head, but if you don't actually do the things that God asked you to do, then what kind of relationship is that really at all? It's not a relationship. It's a fantasy, right? So God put us down here specifically to do stuff for Him. And we said how important that is, and we stressed it, and we studied it in Baruch Hashem. Now we find ourselves in another 3-chapter segment. This 3-chapter segment is all about Kavanah. It's called Intent in Torah Study and in Prayer. And we could expand that as well into mitzvah observance, mitzvah performance. And we need to learn in these 3 chapters the concept of our intentions, our devotion, what's going on in our heads and in our hearts when we are doing a mitzvah. Because, again, and we spoke last week at some length, that while the mitzvah is absolutely what's most important, because that's what's going to fix the world, it's not going to be through, excuse me, my personal love or fear of God. It's going to happen when I do a mitzvah, one mitzvah at a time, to make this world a better place. At the same point, you could do a mitzvah with the wrong intention, and then it doesn't really get you there very far at all. And this is kind of a debate or a concept that we see very clearly in the New Testament when we talk about the concept of faith versus works. In the end of the day, you need both, right? You need both. But if you don't have faith, your works are dead. Right, exactly right. And we learned the phrase last week, Mitzvah b'li kavana ke guf b'li neshama, which is like a mitzvah without good intention, love and fear of God, and an active heart is like a body without a soul. What's a body without a soul in it? Dead. Exactly right. So we need both, right? We need to actually do what God told us to do, and we need to do it in the right frame of mind, in the right frame of heart. So that's what this 3-chapter segment is about. Tonight we're going to tell you exactly, very specifically, in extremely precise and albeit Kabbalistic language, how exactly this works, why it's worth it to have better kavana versus worse kavana, why it's better to have a better mind and heart when you're engaged in prayer or Torah study or mitzvah performance or observance than not, right? And why it is so important. But again, to get there, we're going to have to use a lot of Kabbalistic terminology, so we're going to go through a bit of a more lengthy introduction now, and then we're going to kind of coast through the chapter a little bit more quickly so we understand all the words that the Alter Rebbe is using. So to begin this process, and I actually don't have one over here. Well, first let's give you the name of the chapter. How's that sound?
Mm-hmm.
The name of the chapter, based on our handy-dandy map of Tanya, is Kavana, Levels in Intent. Levels in Intent. Kavana means intent. We're talking about the levels, the different levels of intent. And again, this is a very powerful chapter, as we will soon see. Kavana, K-A-V-A-N-A-H. Though transliteration isn't an exact science.
No, I was going to say, it's not a double N?
Oh,
Sometimes it
whatever
is.
you like, it's fine. Levels and intent. So the short summary here is intellectual love and fear is uniquely human. We don't find that anywhere else in all of creation. Intellectual love and fear, this is a human thing. While instinctual love and fear, we find this in the animal world as well, right? Primarily in the animal world. Even the angels, and this is coming from the first couple lines of the Tanya, of this chapter, even angels are called chayot. Chayot, as we described earlier, chayot means animals, right? Mm-hmm. Like Bubby said, don't you be a wilde chayas, don't you be a wild animal. Animals are called chayot, read the book of Ezekiel, because their love and fear of God is natural, not intellectual. Okay, so that's where we're going with this concept. So you may remember last week, I'll keep that open just in case. We had a chart. We're having more charts this week. I actually don't have a copy of the chart we had from last week. Does anybody have that handy, by the way?
Sure.
Perfect. If you want to just kind of give that a quick shot in the screen, that would be wonderful for us.
You mean the dots come?
The dots come, the original dots come, boom. And again, if you want to know more about this, we studied it at length last week. Thank you. Dots com, we learned, is an acronym for the 4 levels of creation. 4 levels of creation. Can anyone tell us a little bit about that? Domim, that's the silent world, like rocks and water. Someach, that which grows.
Vegetative world. Chai.
Chai, like the chayot, right? This is stuff that moves.
Animal world.
Animals.
And medaber,
The speaker.
which is the speaker. That is the human world.
Right. That's what sets us apart from other species, really, if you think about it. Our biggest advantage isn't our fancy brains so much as it is our ability to communicate what's going on in our fancy brains, right? The fact that I could wake up or be born into this world and not have to invent a wheel, because Adam already did it or whatever, that's a human thing, right? Even dolphins don't do that, unless it's going on really low under the water. I don't see it. So, we have these 4 levels of creation. We said, in everything of creation, we have these 4 levels. And we said the domim area, the silent or mineral world, which is, again, rocks and water and chemicals and stuff like that. These are like the mitzvot we do with action, right? Our action-oriented mitzvot. The level higher than that, Someach, that which grows. These are our verbal and thought mitzvahs, things like prayer, things like Torah study, things that require our mental input and our verbal input. Then we started branching into the world that really looks alive, right? Animals and people are moving around. I mean, a vegetable is alive, but you can't really tell unless you come back every day and check it out.
If he's not an ant, he doesn't move around.
If he's not an ant, of course. Sorry for forgetting that caveat. So the animal world is corresponding to, again, what we just said in the introduction to this chapter, instinctual kavana. So instinctual kavana means there's somewhere deep inside the animal that it has a natural love and a natural fear for that which is good for it and that which is not good for it, right? All animals move towards food and away from pain. And they don't got to go to college to do that, right? They know instinctually not to touch fire because it's hot, right? It's not intellectual. There's no intellectual process going on there. It's just motivated by their instinct. And then we had the highest level, the medaber, the human. This is the intellectual love and fear, which we, again, quoted in our summary of this chapter, and we introduced last week. So moving on from this, the Alter Rebbe is going to begin by talking about angels. And angels are, where would you put angels on this list, for example? You read ahead. Where do you think most people would?
They might put them even above.
They might say it's not even on the list. They might say angels are something else, right? But we said this is the 4 levels of all creation. So where do angels fit on here?
Loving kindness.
Loving
I
kindness.
Oh, wrong list.
Wrong list.
Oh.
It's okay.
He means in
Oh,
he's
that
from-
one.
From the one from last week, that's where we're
Oh.
starting.
Right.
Okay.
Actually, and when you introduced, when you started talking about chayot, and that the
Chayot.
angels are described as animals,
Right.
and they don't, the Alter Rebbe is going to explain how they don't have freedom of choice.
Mm-hmm.
They're instinctive. They're in the really part of the animal world.
So let's go ahead and read the first couple sentences here. I guess the first sentence of chapter 39, and then we're going to talk a little bit more, and then we can move forward, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So the chapter 39 begins the Alter Rebbe says, "It is also for this reason," and again, this reason is that which we just reviewed on that .com page. "It is also for this reason that the angels are called chayot, beasts, and behemot, domestic beasts or cattle, as it's written, and the face of the lion was on the right side, and the face of the ox was on the left side." That's from the first chapter of Ezekiel. Do we remember that first chapter?
Mm-hmm.
You'll find similar stuff in chapter 6 of Isaiah, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is the image of God's throne, what we call Merkava, the chariot. "For they have no freedom of choice." Angels have no freedom of choice, and their fear and love are natural instincts, as it's stated in Raya Mehemna on Parshas Pinchas. So Raya Mehemna is that section of Zohar which was authored by Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses our teacher, Parshat Pinchas. This is towards the end of the book of Numbers. So, let's discuss. We know if you look into the book of Ezekiel, let's take for example, and you go open it to chapter 1, and you read about the throne.
I had Bible with me.
Okay, if you want, you can take a look at that, follow along. We're just going to cursorily go over it, though. It says, and again, you got to know your Ivrit, you got to know your Hebrew, but it says that these creatures with the 4 faces, how does he describe it? Go ahead and open up the Bible. Let's take a look and see what it says. And I'll tell you something fascinating about the New Testament too, if you like. Chapter 1, verse 10, I
Okay.
think is what it said, right?
I think it did. That I see that really starting in verse 5, it starts speaking about them. Inside, I looked and I saw a windy storm. I'm going back to 4. And a huge cloud with a flashing fire,
So again,
glowing
this is
brightly
Ezekiel's
all
first
around with
prophecy.
the color of gleaming amber from within the fire. And then verse 5 says, "Inside there appeared to be 4 living creatures that looked like human beings, but each one had 4 faces and 4 wings."
Okay.
So it wasn't like there were 4 of them and each one had a different face.
Each one had all 4.
had 4 faces, right?
So the word that it's using there in this is the CJB.
And that's
Mhm.
the angels?
Yeah,
That's the
these
angels?
high-level angels, they're called, what did Stern translate them as?
Chayot.
Does he use the word chayot?
Oh, not yet, anyways.
Yeah, he did, actually. We
He
didn't
did?
use the word chayot specifically, but he translated it in English for us. What does it say?
Oh, it said 4 living creatures.
Living creatures, okay?
Mhm.
This is because the word in Hebrew there is chayot. He saw arba, 4 chayot, alive things, 4 things that were definitely living in this cloud, in this amber, okay? This is what Ezekiel saw. So, what'd you say?
Nothing.
So then he says, and you go on and you could see Ezekiel has this vision when he begins his prophetic mission. Isaiah has this same vision when he begins his prophetic mission. And this word chayot means in regular Hebrew animals, wild animals, right? Wild animals. So we see that angels are called animals by the Bible itself. Interestingly enough,
But he's seeing in
I
them.
wonder, though, has anyone ever seen an animal's foreheads? Now, watching the exotic, or Dr. K's show on Animal Planet, she had someone bring in a snake with 2 heads.
Whoa.
It was awesome. It was a python
Wow.
with 2 heads. It was unbelievable.
Imagine if you saw
It
something
blew
before.
all their minds at the
I
hospital.
only see one with 7.
Oh, I don't
But
know
I
about
mean,
that.
4, like, that blew their
That would be
mind. They
crazy.
had never seen that, but
Of course, you know.
4, like.
So we're talking about some wild stuff here. So when we have this word chayot, and it's used to refer specifically to animals throughout the rest of the Bible, and right here it's used to refer to angels, here we have our connection. So here's the interesting thing I said I'd tell you. And I got this from the Delitzsch Hebrew Gospels, which I brought with me actually if you're interested in taking a look at it. I like the Delitzsch translation because he uses biblical Hebrew as opposed to modern Hebrew when he translates the Gospel. So it says in the beginning of the book of Mark, in chapter 1, this is right after Mashiach, he had his test in the wilderness, right? And then it says he was in the wilderness after the test, and the angels and the blank attended to him. What's that word in Mark? Do you remember? The angels and what were with him?
The animals?
It says wild animals, living creatures. So, Delitzsch, in his wisdom, translates that in the Hebrew as chayot. Chayot, which means Mashiach, after his testing at the start of his public ministry, probably saw, like all prophets do, this vision of the divine chariot before he began his mission, because he saw the chayot, right? The word right there is chayot. So I just think that's interesting. You could
These
kind of
are
take that home.
High-level angels.
Highest level angels, absolutely right. Chayot are the angels like Michael and Gabriel you hear about. High level. The Rambam describes 10 levels of angel.
Did you want me to read any further?
Nope, that's okay. I don't want to get too off topic because we do have quite a bit to cover.
Okay.
So we have this concept that angels are of the category of chayot, which are animals. So I've had like all kinds of conversations and stuff with people who have this way of, I guess you could say, idolizing the Satan. And they say that, you know, Satan has independent energy, he's got free choice, he chose to rebel, he chose to flee heaven, and it's now like this big death match between him and God, and, you know, who's going to win? I don't know, probably God. That's idolatry, right? That's super pagan. We can't believe that at all. All angels, and look right here in the Tanya, all angels have no freedom of choice. You can't rebel if you don't have freedom of choice. Angels are like animals. So picture like a dog, right? A dog naturally is going to come back to its own vomit, right? Since survival, right? A dog is naturally going to do. You can't say, "Oh no, that's gross, dog. Don't do that. You should be better." It's a natural instinct of a dog to do that, right?
He looks at you and says, I'm a
What
dog.
are you talking about? This is great stuff here, you know?
Yeah.
So that's what an animal does, right? So angels, in this sense, and I like a more modern terminology, are kind of like computer programs. God programs the angel to do what it needs to do, and an angel has one job. It's either a messenger angel, or it's a healing angel, or it's a angel of judgment, or whatever the situation might be, right? And like different animals, they have their function and their nature and their instincts. So interestingly enough as well, the 4 faces that were on these chayot are a lion, an ox, an eagle, and a man, because the lion is the most powerful wild animal, and the ox is the most powerful domestic animal, and the eagle is the most powerful bird, right? So we have these concepts that are here essentially below God's throne, right underneath God's throne. And these instincts, you know, it's the nature of a lion to roar and sleep all day and maul when it gets hungry, right? That's the nature of these things. So if God sends an angel on its path, it's naturally going to do that which God programmed it to do, like any other animal would. So that's what we have talking about angels. And some people want to, I don't know exactly why, but I've had like heavily debated discussions with people about this concept of angels not having free choice, but it's what Judaism believes. So,
But are you saying that Satan was programmed to rebel?
that's precisely what I'm saying. And again, we talked about this earlier in Tanya. Maybe you caught it during the review. But the concept that God creates and sustains evil is a good question. You know, why does he do that? But it doesn't mean that Satan ever has independent power. It means that God needs the option of evil if we're going to have free choice. So the only things that have free choice are us because God set it up this way. If God didn't give us the wrong choice to make, then everything we would do would not merit any kind of reward because we would be natural animals or angels just doing it anyways. Right?
Instinctive.
And God hates energizing evil. So why would God make something that he hates? Again, for a really good purpose, to enable free choice, to enable reward and punishment, because God wants to reward us so much. Right?
For ultimate good.
For ultimate good. So that's the concept.
But I don't know that we covered it yet, but there's a place where it says that it was like he showed Moses when he put him in the cleft of the rock, only his afterglow, or what's called his hinder part.
Hinder part, yeah.
Hinder part. And this is where the vivification, the energy to bring to life
Impurity.
evil and impurity in the world is from the hinder part of God.
That's exactly right. Like the idea that you give money to someone unwillingly, you throw it over your shoulder, you go, no, you can't even stand the guy, you can't even look at him, right? So you throw the money over your shoulder like a court case, right? The judge tells you got to pay, you got to pay. God essentially has to go to work to be able to
You don't have to like it, right?
Right, you don't have to like it. God does not like energizing impurity, and he will no longer continue to do so in the Messianic era, which is why we hope and pray that it comes soon. So, we got to go a little bit further here.
That little bit, I think, helps to understand.
Absolutely true. Absolutely true. When we call the levels of impurity in this world, in Kabbalah and Tanya, we say it's Sitra Achra, right? Sitra Achra means the other side. The other side of what? The other side of holiness, right? There's the holy side, and then there's the other side, that which God energizes that he doesn't show his countenance to, that he doesn't lovingly energize. And again, this is basic logic, really, when you think about it. So, we have angels here that we've covered so far. And again, chapter 39 is going to tell us what exactly happens to your Torah study, what exactly happens to your prayer, what exactly happens to your mitzvah when you do it with the proper kavana. Again, the kavana of an intellectually, emotionally motivated human, not instinctual like an animal, but intellectually. When we have that situation, how much higher that mitzvah goes in the spiritual realms, or how much closer it gets us to God, or how much intimacy it affords us with God. So now we're going to have a complex sentence here, and then we're going to talk some more. Therefore, the quality of tzaddikim, what's a tzaddik?
Righteous one.
A righteous person. The quality of tzaddikim is superior to theirs. Who's theirs? The angels, right? The chayot. And the chayot are like big, powerful angels. This is like Michael and Gabriel we're talking about here. I mean, these like heavy spiritual forces. A tzaddik, a regular human who's righteous, way more powerful than them. Way more powerful. Because we have free choice and we chose to do the right thing with it. That's why it says we were made a little lower than the angels for a little while at a time, right? Because it's just because we can't see everything that we're not stronger than they are, really.
To understand the terminology that's going to be used, you really need to go to this.
That's where we're going. So the quality of tzaddikim is superior to the angels, for the abode of the souls of the righteous, of the tzaddikim, is in the world of Bria, whereas the abode of angels is primarily in the world of Yetzirah. Now, if you guys can understand that completely, we can move on. No?
The second highest world and the lowest world.
Right, or the second,
The
or the
middle
next
worlds.
lowest world.
The
Right.
middle worlds. So we gave you this chart to start us off. This is a chart that we actually put together some years ago on the four worlds, the four universes, if you will. Okay? So you're going to want to take a look at this. And it looks busy, but we're going to walk you through it real slow. So we have from top to bottom the worlds, and you can see them in this column is what I'm going to be reading here. The worlds are Atzilut, which means, Etzel means like very close to emanation, the world of emanation. And then there's Bria. Bria comes from the word bara, like create. So Bria is the world of creation. Yetzirah means to form. It's the world of formation. That's one world lower. And then Asiya, from like Aseh Tov, like do good, is the world of do, the world of action. That's why, and you might see our little earth icon down here at the bottom. It's a little cut off. But that's where we are, right down here at the bottom of the spiritual ladder. So, again, this world is the world of action. This is where we have to do, okay?
We can only look up.
You can only look up from here.
That's the positive side of that.
I mean, we're as low as it goes. So, even hell is a spiritual world. That means it's higher up on the list. So, we have here 4 worlds. We talked a little bit in before we started the camera here about the 10 sefirot, right? You can see them represented here on every level. However, in these 4 worlds, you'll find, and this is on the far left side here, right? Far right side, sorry. One of the 10 sefirot, one of the 10 sefirot is, or one group is going to be dominant in each world. So, the top world, Atzilut, this is, in Atzilut, everything is one with God. Everything up there is God. If you were to point at anything there and say, you know, oh, what is that? It's God up there, right? Everything's united with God in a perfect unity in the world of Atzilut. And that's why we say, you can't even call this creation yet. It's too close to God. It's just like coming off of God. It's not separate from Him at all. It's just emanation.
It's the world of emanation.
Right. That world is dominated by Chokhmah. Chokhmah, again, is wisdom, or inspiration, or faith. Wisdom, as we understand it as Americans, is probably not the best term. We say wisdom, we mean understanding. When we're talking about wisdom from a godly level, we're talking about the spark that initiates the understanding. So the spark that initiates the understanding is kind of like your light bulb or aha moment. Inspiration, right? So the world next down, this line between Atzilut and Bria, is really where we could say creation begins, okay? And I know we cut this up into 4 worlds here because this is how Kabbalah talks about it. It talks about 4 general worlds. In reality, there are millions and billions of worlds, right? But we're grouping them into 4 general categories here, okay? As it says, if you kill a person, you kill an entire world, right? Each one of us has our own level of relationship to God, and it's totally unique and totally important. So, this is where creation first begins in the world of Bria. And you can see here on the left, my left, your right, that it's dominated by the attribute of Bina, of understanding. So, Atzilut, inspiration, emanation. Bria, understanding, creation. This is kind of like the imagery of a father and mother. We have the father, who contributes a small dot to the relationship, and it's the mother who takes that dot and builds it into a child, builds it into a home, right? Builds it into a baby over a long gestation period, whatever it's going to be. So that's understanding, this receptacle by which we can start appreciating godliness and the godly spark. This is the world of Bria, understanding. As the Alter Rebbe said here, this is where the tzaddik goes. This is where the soul of the tzaddik ends up after you die, before the resurrection. Okay? The next world down here is the world of Yetzirah, the world of formation. This is the world of the Midot. So you might have heard the word we tossed around before, Midot. Midot refers to the 6 emotive attributes. Yeah, if you want to.
Like that.
Like that. If you want to take a look at that, that's fine. The 6 emotive
What
attributes.
I highlighted there, the emotive attributes.
Chesed, Gevura, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, and Yesod, right? Love, fear, compassion, endurance, humility, and friendship. This is the world of Yetzirah.
That's these right here.
And again,
look at it, pretty small here, but
this is more closely related to animals, right? Because animals, as we said before, they are instinctual based. They're not intellectuals. We're intellectuals. Animals are instinctual, so they love it or they're afraid of it, right? So this is where the angels are, primarily, in the world of Yetzirah. Does that make sense? And then there's the world below, the world of Asiya. The world of Asiya is split up into several areas. Essentially, we have Asiya Deruchnia, right? Is that right? The spiritual Asiya, which is the spiritual world that's around us we can't really see. And then the Asiya Gashmia, the physical, actual, hard physical world that we find ourselves in, the material world. So that's at the lower part of the universe of Asiya. Okay? So what the Alter Rebbe just said here in the first paragraph is that angels, even Michael and Gabriel are like high level in the world of Yetzirah. That's where they extend to, not much further than that. They live there. Whereas the souls of righteous people, they surpass that, and they go up to a higher level, which is Bria, because they serve God during their lives with intellectual love and fear. Not instinctual, intellectual. They meditated about it, they thought about it. They learned who God was, they chose to do his mitzvahs, and they chose to do it with proper love and fear, that they understood by themselves. That's why they end up here. Okay? So, keep these handy. We're going to be moving through them a little bit here. So the Alter Rebbe brings a note here. I suppose we'll hit the note. Again, keep those charts handy. We said angels are in the world of Yetzirah because they're like animals, right? God has many angels, many different kinds, many different levels. As such, that's nice. That said, God has intellectually understanding angels as well, who serve God instinctually with their limited intelligence. So these are going to be angels that are actually going to show up in the world of Bria proper. However, as we're soon going to find, the palaces, as the Alter Rebbe, or as it's translated here in the Tanya, where the tzaddikim stay in this heaven, in this higher Garden of Eden, we're going to talk about all that. The angels can't come inside that place. They're like on the balcony outside, looking in to what's going on. So they're up in this world of Bria, but they're not to the level where humans are.
They're real close to this line then, huh?
Yeah, or they're like on the balcony outside of the palace, or the chamber. So, that's what this note says. This refers to ordinary angels, but there are higher angels in the world of Bria whose service is with intelligent fear and love, as it's explained in the Raya Mehemna. Again, Raya Mehemna means faithful shepherd. It's the section of the Zohar, the primary work of Kabbalah. It's the section of Zohar which is traditionally authored by Moshe Rabbeinu, by Moses, our teacher.
Whoa.
And it says there, whoa.
No, I never know how to pay.
Oh yeah, the note here is weird, so we got to flip the page to continue the note, as it says. And there are two kinds of holy chayot, instinctive and intelligent, as is also explained in Eitz Chaim by Chaim Vital, who is the primary disciple of the Arizal, the famous Kabbalist. So, after the note, we can come back to page 188 on the bottom. So, in general, angels are in Yetzirah. Kosh? Sometimes you'll find them in Bria, but not in the sweetest spots. And of course, there are angels in the lower worlds as well, among us. All the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
But those are going to be a lower level, lower order, lower power level angel. So the difference between them being the angels that are in Yetzirah, and the tzaddikim, the righteous people who were in Bria after you die. The difference between them is in that, in the world of Yetzirah, only the midot of the Ein Sof, of the infinite one, blessed be He, only the emotional attributes shine forth, namely love of Him and the dread and fear of Him. As is stated in the Tikkunim, in Eitz Chaim, that the 6 sphirot, what again are the 6 sphirot?
Mido.
The midot. And they include love and fear, all the way down to love and fear and compassion, endurance, humility, and friendship, bonding, right?
Kochma, Bina.
No chokhmah.
Oh, no. It's below that.
Right.
It's, Chesed Gevurah.
Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, and Yesod.
Right.
Right.
Uh-huh.
So it's only those 6 that are shining forth in the world of Yetzirah, as we said before. Does that make sense?
Yes, remembering that was another story.
So if we have 4 worlds, you can tell what they look like based on the attributes that are primarily present there, or in control, or dominant there. So for example, in Yetzirah, it looks like a world that's based on love and fear, right? Our world here is based on a world of kingship. We don't really get to see the king, but we accept the yoke of heaven, and we do the mitzvahs, right? That's what this world's all about, because it's the world of doing, asiyah. Whereas in the world of Bria, we just skipped up to now, it's all about intellectual pursuits, right? It's not about doing. They can't do up there. It's all about intellectual pursuits. And In the top world, it's all God. It's all connected to godliness. It's all emanation. And again, Chokhmah has nothing of itself. So, the six Sefirot nest in the world of Yetzirah. And again, all of the Sefirot are there. As we learned during the study of the counting of the Omer, all of the Sefirot are in every world. That's the left column on this page. But there are certain ones that are dominant there, right? So in Bria, Bina is dominant. In our world, Malchut is dominant. In between, it's the six Midot. Therefore, it is the constant service of the angels, resting neither day or night, to stand in fear of dread, and fear and dread, and these being the whole camp of Gabriel on the left. So if you pull back to your chart of the Sefirot, we're talking about left column angels, right? Left column angels that are primarily in the camp of Gabriel. So we got Michael on the right, is Chesed, minister Shel Chesed, Sar Shel Chesed, and Gabriel, who is the Gavura El, right? The Gavura of God, on the left. So anytime we say right, we mean giving, Chesed, kindness. Anytime we say left, we mean fear, dread, judgment, withholding, discipline, etc., etc. So, the world of Yetzirah is populated primarily by Gabriel's camp of angels, which is the left, and also Michael's camp of angels, which is the Chesed, the love, which is the right. That said, in the world of Bria, shine forth Chokhmah, Bina, and Da'at of the Ein Sof Yisbarach, the wisdom, understanding, and knowledge of the Infinite One, blessed be He, which are the source of the Midot, and their mother and root. So if Chokhmah is dad and Bina is mom, and they get together through Da'at and they have children, who are their six children? Chesed, Gevur, Teferet, Netzach, and Yesod, right? Love, fear, compassion, endurance, humility, and bonding. How are we doing? We losing anybody?
Overwhelmed.
There's a lot of terminology here.
We just started.
Yeah, we got pages to go. So,
It's kind of heavy.
we're going to repeat these concepts for the rest of the chapter, though. This is pretty much
where
it.
Where are you? Because I don't know how you.
We are 190 in the middle of the left column.
Okay.
Did you?
You'll have to show me later when this is over how to
Okay.
follow.
You just
I
mentioned
don't
the supernal
understand.
mother, right?
Yes. No.
No, not yet.
Just before that line.
Oh, and their mother and root.
And their
Okay.
mother, which is the source and root of the Midot. So the mother is Bina, and the Midot are like the children, love and fear. As is stated in the Tikkunim, that's a level of Kabbalah, that Ima Ilah, the supernal mother, the highest level mother, nests in the three Sefirot, in the three attributes, in the divine throne, which is the world of Bria. So we said again in Ezekiel's vision, there's a throne, there's a what looks like a man on the throne, and then there's the throne, and then there's the angels that kind of look like they're holding up the throne, right? So we could have this right here. The man is like God, because everything on Atzilot is pretty much God. The throne is like Bria. The angels are in the world of Yetzirah, they're holding up the throne. This is the image that Ezekiel and Isaiah and probably Mashiach saw, right?
I read on in Ezekiel there, and it described a dome that they were holding up, and that was supporting the throne above it.
Well, remember, each one of those lines there represents a firmament. So, supernal mother, and again, as Reb Bezalel said, all of this is echad, all of this is one. You know, why don't we pray to the supernal mother? Anybody ever ask you that? I know we're getting into some crazy stuff, right? Crazy stuff. We don't, because God is one, and the mother has her close friend that never separates, which is the Father, right? So these are both energies within God and godliness. So it's all one. We pray to one God. We
It's
say,
all
God,
one.
I need your help, right?
But when it's talking about the three Sephiroth, it's talking about the upper triad.
The upper tribe, the intellectual spot, right? So again, Hashem Echad, God is one, but we could take a look at individual attributes to help us with a better understanding of who He is and how He relates to us, right? So we have Ima Ilah, the supernal mother, nests in the three Sefirot, which is the Chokhmah, Bina, and Da'at, in the divine throne, which is the world of Bria. That's what we just said. Therefore, this is the abode of the souls of the righteous, humans, who serve God with fear and love, which are derived from understanding and knowledge of the greatness of the Ein Sof Yisbarach, of the Holy One, blessed, of the Infinite One, rather, blessed be He. So you have a person here, and he's not just habitually doing mitzvah. He recognizes God. He read the Bible. It says in the Bible that you should say grace after meals. I don't know, something. So he eats. He thinks about God. He's like, oh yeah, I know God's in charge, right? So I should do what He says. And I like the guy, so I want to do what He wants. So I'm going to say grace after meals, right? That's intellectually motivated love and fear. So that kind of service rewards you a spot in Bria, again, after you die, before Mashiach returns, which will be the resurrection of the dead. And you can see on here we're talking about the higher Garden of Eden and the lower Garden of Eden. We're going to illuminate that in just a little bit, but those are the locations that we're talking about here. Okay, for this love is called Re'uta de Liba, a heart's desire, as has already been mentioned above in previous chapters. And from this heart's desire is produced a garment for the soul in the world of Bria. So again, we talked about this concept that when you do a mitzvah, and you have this mitzvah, every time you do a mitzvah, it creates something, right? Like when you have intimacy with a husband and wife, it creates a baby. When we're intimate with God, we create this mitzvah, and this mitzvah allows us a garment, right? We say that the garments are higher than us because the garments are godly. They're Torah and mitzvahs. So with that as a reality, we're making a garment in one of these spiritual worlds based on our kavanah. It's a fundamental understanding of this chapter. So if we have this intellectual love and fear of God and we do the mitzvah, we just made a place for ourselves in the higher world. We just made a place for ourselves in the higher Garden of Eden. Whereas if we didn't think about love and fear of God, we just instinctually did it because I know that's time. We just got done eating and this is what we do. Then you just made a garment for yourself in the world of Yetzirah. And if you didn't have any kavanah whatsoever, you didn't even think about it, you just mailed the words and you didn't even think about God, you just made a garment for yourself in the world of Asiyah, which is not helping, right?
It said that the Tzaddikim, the righteous ones, their souls are in the world of Berea.
Bria, right.
And when you said that when we partner with God,
Yeah,
and we in the performance of a mitzvah,
right.
at that time we stand like a Tzaddikim.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And because God's eternal and outside of time and space, which are way down here, right? That's forever in that spot. That lasts forever. That mitzvah, whatever it was. Like they tell that joke about the...
Why do we have to keep doing it?
Because you don't want just one spot in the world to come, right? You want a mansion. You want a whole plantation, right?
We can't do them after we're dead.
Mm-hmm.
I know that.
We can only do them now, so we need to do as well we can.
As much as we can.
So how
And the
do
more
you
we
know
build
it's
up
ever
there, the
enough,
better our
though?
portion.
I mean, it's like
Well,
It's never enough.
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like,
Never is.
so what's the point? I'm just
Yeah.
Because
Yes,
it's
so
God's
is it.
will.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what He wants us to do.
It's a love relationship. It's them wanting to please God.
Yeah. Or a fear relationship. I know
Both
He's in
ways.
charge, so
Both ways,
I'm not
yes.
going to rebel. Even though I want to, right? Which, by the way, is a holy, holy level of service. If your body is screaming at you in the morning, I don't want to go and pray, I hate it, I'm tired, whatever, and you force yourself to do it anyways, that's called holy righteousness.
Fear.
Right? That's good service of God. Again, that's motivated by the fear side more than it is the love side, the gavura rather than the chesed. But it's still the same service to God. You know? It's the spicy instead of the sweet. So,
It's sort of like a conversation I always have inside when I get up. But God, I can't even
Absolutely.
think straight,
Everything counts.
Right.
speak it out. Let me do this first.
yeah, right? Let me get a bite to eat. I don't know, something.
But I know I should do it first.
Right. So that's the fear, right?
Yeah.
As it says, there is no wisdom without fear.
So there's that sort of battle. Each
So,
morning.
exactly.
It depends, you don't wake up the same way every morning, Sometimes you feel more tired.
Sometimes you're ready to
Sometimes
go.
you're a little more awake, and so it's kind of a flow, give and take.
So essentially what we have here is every time you do a mitzvah, let's say you're praying in the morning or whatever it is, you're building onto your portion in the world to come. And again, that portion's eternal, wherever it is that you put it, whether it's in Bria, which is intellectually based, or in Yetzirah, which is instinctively based, whatever. You're building that portion. And it's forever. Kind of reminds me of that joke they tell. It's a horrible joke. But
But he's going to tell
but
it
I'm
anyway.
going to tell it anyways, right? So there was this certain gentleman, he was real bad, and the angels are all excited to judge him when he came up because this was like a really bad guy. They hadn't seen a bad guy like this in a long time. Yeah. So they're going through and they're saying, you never did this and you neglected that and we can't even find one good thing to say about you. And they're going through the books and they find at one point, there was like one Saturday night at 2 a.m., he came out of a bar or something like that, walked down the alley and saw a hungry person. He flipped him a quarter behind his back. And the angel's like, well, this is tzedakah, this is charity. What are we supposed to do with this? And the chief angel looked at it and said, give him back his quarter and send him to hell. Right? That's not how it works, right? That's not how it works at all. How it works is that mitzvah is eternal. All right, you may be the biggest shlemazel in the world.
It's only a quarter, but it's an
You're
eternal
watching
quarter.
too much of it.
Right?
But it's an eternal mitzvah, and it can't go away. You can't rub that out. That is forever. So where are we putting those mitzvahs?
Except he didn't give it as charity. It was more of a...
Charity is charity. The Rambam describes 8 levels of charity, and they're all called charity. And flipping them behind your back disdainfully is the lowest level. But it's
You're right.
there,
He
you know?
didn't have the right
That's what
kavana.
I'm saying, yeah.
The kavanah was
the
low.
wrong mindset
Right?
of...
The wrong kavanah. So, again, we have these garments, these portions that we're building in the world to come. When we do these mitzvahs, and where is it that you want to put these? So again, the Alter Rebbe is saying here, this heart's desire produce a garment in the world for the soul in the world of Bria. And again, the world of Bria, as we say here, is on our little charts. We love little charts. Is the higher Gan Eden, the higher Garden of Eden. This is where the tzaddikim live, right? There's a lower Garden of Eden. This is where angels typically are all around the world of Yetzirah. And the lower Garden of Eden is where the souls of people go when you serve God instinctually. I didn't meditate about my love and fear of God. I know He's in charge, so I did it. What do you want, right? That gets you to Yetzirah. Let's see here, as will be explained later, as is written in the Zohar, Parshas Vayakel. So, and there's an interesting thing here. I believe it's called. No, I'm looking at you, but I don't. I believe it's called Kuntris Hishtutcha, something like that. Hishtashta. I wrote it down. I'm sorry.
Usually these things roll right.
I mean, I haven't personally read this one, but it's a book that was written about the concept of praying at the ohel of a Rebbe, right? The concept of praying at the grave of a righteous person. That look okay for us?
Yeah.
Good. So we find in the Torah there's a story of people who, from time to time, would pray at the grave of the righteous, right? What comes to mind now is Caleb, right?
The cave of Machpelah.
Right. He went, when they were scouting out Israel, he went to the cave of Machpelah, where Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and Sarah, and Rivka, and Leah are buried. And he prayed to God there for help, that he should not fall in with the bad spies, like the 10 bad spies. And God answered his prayer because he prayed at the grave of the Rebbe, of the Tzaddik, right? So the way that works is explained in this book, which I'm sorry, I can't remember the name. Kuntris Hishtutchka? I don't know. I can give it to you later. I wrote it down. And it's actually published by Kahot, and it's in English now if you want to read it. But it says essentially, and we've talked before, the soul has various levels that are contained within us. The nefesh energizes our body, and the ruach energizes our emotions, and the neshama energizes our intellect, right? So the truth is, when the soul leaves the body, those 3 levels split up. They don't all stay together. So the nefesh, the part that energizes the body, stays in the world of Asiya down here, hovers above the grave, right? So this is the part that's associated with the body, most closely connected to the body. That's why praying at the grave of a tzaddik works, because their soul is there, and even though their ruach is in Yetzirah, emotion, right, love and fear, and their neshama is in Bria, intellect, right? These 3 levels of their soul can interact and talk to each other, essentially. whereas
the-
they're
the-
separated into
the
different
nefesh?
worlds. The nefesh is going to be down here, the ruach, the neshama.
No, you're not supposed to talk to the dead.
No, you don't ever pray to a dead person, but you pray to God in the presence or at the gravesite of a very righteous person. They're in heaven right now, and they are righteous enough to have an understanding and an awareness of everything that's going on. They can intercede on your behalf on high for you, just like Rachel does, just like Moses does, etc., etc. So when you pray to God, Moses is right there, or Abraham's right there saying, come on, God, give him, right?
So the prayers to God, but the nefesh of the Zedekim
Mhm.
is actually giving it a big oomph.
You have a highway to God, like right there. I mean, this you
So
got,
where should I stand?
right? And that's
Over
a good way to think about it. Is like cell reception, right? The Wi-Fi signal is very strong at the grave of an Ohel. That's why for people who or the grave of a tzaddik. That's why when people go and visit the grave of the Rebbe, very often they'll take off their shoes, right? Because they think that's the idea, right?
Why?
So in your life,
Why?
where the idea that you're more closely connected to God right now, because the tzaddik's nefesh is there.
Yeah, but what's about shaking the shoes off?
Like in the temple, you took your shoes off when you went on the Temple Mount. Or Moses took his shoes off when he was speaking to God at the burning bush. Similar kind of a thing.
By reason of being with the nefesh of the righteous one,
You have a closer connection to God at
you're on
that
holy
space
ground.
in that time.
Yeah, closer to God.
Essentially. And by taking off the shoes, it could certainly help you get in that mindset, at the very least.
I don't go to cemeteries, though.
No, I mean, I'm not saying that you should hang out there. I'm just
Oh, I-
saying that this is a very common Jewish practice, and this is the explanation as to why.
Which I can understand that, but
Mhm.
I don't know who I know that was dead that was so righteous that I could go.
Well, that's the thing, right? It doesn't help if you go to...
So you mean if you go to like a cemetery and you find like a rabbi's grave or something or somebody like that, it's supposed to bring you. It can bring you.
It can
closer.
enhance your prayer.
Can you
To God.
presume that they were righteous?
No.
Okay,
I mean, there's
Okay,
only a couple
no.
people we know for sure, right?
yeah.
Like, we know the Rebbe of blessed memory and his predecessor, the previous Rebbe. We know how holy these people were. They spent their entire lives in service of God, and brilliant scholarly contributions to concepts we couldn't even touch before. You could feel it. We knew these people just a couple of years ago.
He wants to know where their grave is.
It's in Brooklyn. You know? Of course, the most famous...
Where's the Baal Shem
Where
Tov?
is it?
Yeah, Megamegabytes.
Let's go
Of
road
course,
trip.
the most famous place to go, of course, would be the Cave of Machpelah, which a lot of people go to. It's in Hebron today, and they turned it into something of a fortress
Where is
because
it?
of our friends. Hebron's in Israel. Well, it's in Israel.
They're so close.
Well, you can't go there, right? Did you
We
say-
can go to the grave of Machpelah today. There's lots of IDF guards to help us with that journey because it's not a
Yeah,
friendly
no,
neighborhood.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's
But it's a really holy spot to pray. A lot of
You
people
would
go there
go?
and pray
well,
because,
no,
What do the guards do?
They wouldn't
Is
take
there
us
a
anywhere.
well,
Right
there's a lot of
for that
unfriendly
journey? Sorry.
ness coming from our cousins in
They
that
don't want
region.
you there, in other words.
Well, yeah.
Why is it so dangerous there if it's in Israel?
Because you're Messianic.
It's
No,
part-
because we're
it's
Jewish
part of
and
the West Bank and
it's Arab
under
controlled
control
and
of
all
And
that.
they can't move it to a safer place?
the grave of the cave of Machpelah,
Well,
absolutely not. It's an underground cavern.
Oh.
So, anyways,
It's like the Temple Mount itself. Is
But if it's in Israel, why is it eating?
it's in Jerusalem, but
Why?
they actually ceded control of it because by reason of the domes that are there, the two of them, because they have a reverence, if you will, or respect for anybody's religion in Israel.
there's a lot to be
Oh,
said
holy-
about the political
holy
choices that were
places.
going in there and which parts of Israel are controlled comfortably by Israel and which aren't. And it's a fascinating discussion, but we have a long chapter ahead
It's,
of
yeah,
us.
it's
Sorry.
outside this.
So, anyways, that's the technology of how that works. So, in your life, with your nefesh, ruach, and neshama, they're going to split when you die, okay? So, the nefesh is going to stay in Asiya, and the ruach's going to go to Yetzirah, and the neshama can go to Bria if you serve God intellectually with love and fear. My question to y'all would be, which part of your soul do you more closely identify with. There are some people who are very intellectual based, right, or force themselves to be. There are other people who are more emotionally based. They do it because it feels good, right? And there's other people who it's less than all of that, right? It's just physical. I'm just here and I'm trudging through life, and it's not emotional at all. You know?
I don't know why. I just do.
So if you connect more closely with your neshama, with your bodily delights in this world, then that is going to be the easiest thing for your consciousness to relate to when it comes time for you to pass. If you were more closely related to the love and fear in your soul of God on an instinctual level, I don't really know a ton about God, but I'm serving God because I just know that that's the right thing to do, then that's the world that you're going to find yourself in, primarily, in the world of Yetzirah, right? And if you serve God intellectually, with intellectually motivated love and fear, you'll find yourself more comfortable in that world, right? In reality, you're in all three. But whichever you focused on in this life is where your primary residence will be then. Does that make sense?
Yes.
It's an intense question.
That makes me wonder.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's, you know,
Absolutely.
which is okay.
So, moving on. On the top of 190 on the right. But this applies specifically to the neshama, souls, which possess a great cognition, as it were, of the Ein Sof Yisbarach, of the Infinite One, blessed be He. As for the category of Ruach, of the righteous, as also all other souls of Israel, who have served God with fear and love that's latent in the heart of every Jew, or person grafted into the olive tree, anybody who identifies with the patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and the matriarchs, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah. Those do not ascend there, and this is what we've been saying the whole time. If you serve God with an instinctual love and fear, it's Yetzirah you end up. You don't end up really primarily in the world of Bria if you serve God instinctually. However, except there's always an exception. Except on Shabbos and the Rosh Chodesh, the new moon, by means of a pillar. You may be able to see the pillar here in the dotted lines on your sheet. The pillar that is in the Garden of Eden. So you go to the Garden of Eden, and there's this elevator, express elevator there, that takes you from the lower Gan Eden to the higher Gan Eden, right? And you're allowed to use this on Shabbos and Yom Tov. And Shabbos and Yom Tov in general, and in the Alter Rebbe here brings Shabbat and the new moon, because the new moon is almost like a Chol HaMoed. It's like a lower level sanctity. You can work on Rosh Chodesh. Even then, you ascend one level. So there's this idea that all of creation, no matter where you are, no matter where you are, all of creation is going to ascend one level, wherever it is that you find yourself, on these special days, Shabbos, Yom Tov, right?
Oh, it's like in a board game. Move ahead two spaces.
Move ahead 2 spaces, right? So, you get to go from the lower to the higher, the world of Bria, which is called the higher Gan Eden. We're going to take pleasure in God and derive enjoyment from the splendor of the Shekhinah. And that's essentially what all the souls do in heaven anyways. So we have this concept, I believe it's in Isaiah, right? The very end of Isaiah 66.
Oh.
All of creation will come up on the Shabbos and new moons.
And new moon, right.
And they bring the offerings to God, etc.
Mm-hmm.
So on a literal level, on a Peshat level, it's talking about in the end of time, in the world to come, everybody's going to go to Jerusalem. They're going to go to the temple on Shabbat and on the Yom Tovs, right? That's Peshat. On a deeper level, it's saying every Shabbat and new moon and Yom Tov in general, all souls of all creation ascend in one of these 4 spiritual worlds during these special holy times. That's why they're holy. That's why they're different. That's why we can't be doing the same things that we do on normal days on those special days, because our soul is elevated to a higher level. You could feel it on Shabbat if you observe Shabbat properly, which is pretty
So
interesting.
what do they do in Israel? Nobody works on Friday and Saturdays in Israel?
I mean, it depends on how observant you are, right?
Well, a lot of people, it's preparation day for Shabbat.
Mhm.
So any last minute things.
Go
you
shopping
go
Friday
down to
morning.
the what is it called? The marketplace, open marketplace.
Pick up your stuff
you
Friday
know,
morning, right? Make sure you're home
like
before.
Ben Yehuda Street, I think it is. But,
Okay.
And yet,
Right.
because they close down by 12 o'clock.
Yeah, and it's ghost town by
Well, that's what I mean.
nighttime,
Isn't
right.
it must be weird.
Oh, it's great.
It's great. Yeah, that sounds
Not
wonderful.
for enemies that are around.
So we have these different levels wherever it is that you find yourself. You can elevate once a week, once a month, once a Yom Tov to this higher level. And again, bask in the pleasure of the Shechina, the pleasure of the Shechina. And it's interesting here, if you know your Hebrew, Shechina, with the hey at the end, says that this is a feminine word, right? So we're talking about the left column, the feminine energy of God, or the Malchut energy of God, which is why we called earlier Malchut, this lowest level of kingship, Shechina. So that's the feminine side of God, which is coming out more prominently in this expression of God. Shekhinah means His divine
Feminine, or
presence.
you could say motherly.
Motherly, sure, that works. So, and that's what everybody does in heaven, right? So everybody in heaven, they are either in the lower Gan Eden or the higher Gan Eden, whatever, and they're studying Torah, and they love it, right? Because there's, I mean, what else are you going to do in heaven? You can't play pinochle. You don't got hands. So you're not eating delicious delicacies. You have no body. You have no mouth, right? So what do? They understand. It's soul delights from understanding. Oh, this is why that happened to me. Oh, this is why that happened to him. Oh, wow, I see all the pieces putting together. That's the only oh, wow that you're going to get up there until you get the soul back in the body, which is the resurrection of the dead. And
And when? How do we know when that is?
the resurrection of the dead? I'm sure it'll be on the news. Right?
Oh,
The Heavenly Gazette.
The Heavenly Gazette. This just in. Yeah, they tell an old joke. Heaven and hell are the same place, right? It's all a big Torah class. So if you study lots of Torah in this world, you're going to love it. And if you didn't, it's going to be hell for you. Right? So that's essentially the idea. Okay. For the intellect of a created being can have no enjoyment or pleasure except what it can, in what it conceives, understands, and knows, and apprehends with its intellect and apprehension, like we just said. What's possible for it to understand and grasp of the light of the Ein Sof, of the light of the Infinite One, Yisbarach, blessed be He, by virtue of His wisdom, God's wisdom and understanding, Yisbarach, blessed be He, which shine forth in the world of Bria. So again, this is where the righteous people go. They get this understanding download. It's a wonderful experience.
That term, I don't know if it's clear, Ein Sof, you know, when we're talking, basically we're talking about that God, it means the
Infinite One, without end.
Infinite One, the Eternal One, the one who's not able to be grasped.
Or defined
properly.
or described in any way.
Right, and that is above Keter.
Which,
Beyond-
of course,
beyond it.
we don't have a word for that, right?
Right.
Undescribable, infinite.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, here we go. So, as for the reason that these souls merit to ascend to a higher level even than the angels, even though their service has been with no more than natural fear and love. So we're talking about people who instinctually served God. They didn't really think a whole ton about it. They ended up in Yetzirah, and now they get to go to Bria on Shabbos and Yom Tov. Why? Says who? Even though their service has been with no more than natural instinctual love and fear, is that through their fear and love, the Sitra Achra, the other side, the materialism, the impurity of this world, was that was in their body, right? Our bodies are made of dirt, was subdued, both in the realm of Shuv Me'ra, turn away from evil, by subjugating and breaking the passions, right? Wake up in the morning, I don't want to pray because I'm tired and I just don't want to, and you do anyways, you're breaking that passion for negativity, I guess you could say. And in the realm of Aseh Tov, of do good, as discussed earlier, because God asked you to do something and you were willing to do it. So by doing that, you're doing Tikkun Olam, you're getting rid of the levels of impurity of this world, you're making the world a more fit dwelling place for God. In the end of the day, that is higher service than any angel ever could possibly do.
Remember the term that we kind of coined for that negativity that arises from the Noga?
Right, negativity.
Negativity.
A little too much negativity, right? Might be good to break that up, says the Rosh Yeshiva Began Eden. So, for they had the free choice, the freedom of choice to choose evil, chas v'sholem, God forbid, yet they chose good in order to subdue the Sitra Achra, thereby elevating the glory of the HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Holy One, blessed be He, as the excellence of light is superior over that of darkness, as was discussed above in previous chapters, and again later, I believe, in some further chapters ahead.
Without doubt.
Without doubt. However, all this is concerned with the abode of the souls and their station, but their Torah and service are actually absorbed into the 10 Sefirot, which are in the category of godliness in the light of the Ein Sof, the Infinite One, Yisbarach, blessed be He, who unites itself in perfect unison. Let's pause there for a second. So the Alter Rebbe is drawing a distinction between your service and you, okay? You do not get completely absorbed into godliness, because if you did get completely absorbed into godliness, you would no longer be you. You would be reverted back to the godliness from whence you came.
Nullified.
You would be nullified in God's presence. Next week, again, we're studying the Tanya out of order here, so we have an opportunity to delve deeper into some of these topics. But next week in our Parsha reading, we're reading Parsha Kitisa, where Moses wants to see God's face, right? And what does God say? Sorry, Moshe, you can't see my face and live. What does that mean? God's got laser beams coming out of his face. What's that mean?
No, it means these physical bodies cannot withstand the light of the Ein Sof that's not concealed
Through many curtains?
through many curtains.
Through many concealments. Tzimtzumim. So if you were to see God right in the face, His glory and His infinity would overwhelm you to the point where you would no longer be a separate entity. You'd be with God.
Burn up like the Seraphim.
Like
Right.
the Indiana Jones thing.
Kind of like that.
Oh, yeah. Melt. Right.
You go all melty. Something like that, I guess. So, so that's the idea here. So you yourself are not nullified into godliness. You are stationed in one of these worlds where we talked about. Probably it's Yetzirah Bria. However, your service, the mitzvah, the Torah, the prayer, and the kavana with which you did those things, that does get absorbed and unified into a perfect unity with God. This is how we can connect. This is our intimate moment with God, which produces creation, right? So our love and fear of God that we had when we were studying Torah or praying or doing a mitzvah, this does become completely absorbed with God's sphero. Again, if it's motivated with love, it gets absorbed in God's chesed. If it's motivated with fear, it gets absorbed into God's gevura, etc., etc. And the Alter Rebbe is going to continue to describe here. That is to say, the 10 Sefirot of the world of Bria, again, each world has all 10. It's just that in each world, one group are dominant. So in the world of Bria, for example, intellect is dominant, Bina, understanding. So all of the 10 Sefirot there are Bina heavy, right? They have it's like the understanding of Chesed and the understanding of Gevura, etc., as we learn in the Omer. So the 10 Sefirot of Bria, if you serve God through intelligent fear and love, your intelligent fear and love get absorbed with God's Sefirot in Bria. Or if it's instinctual, then they get absorbed with God's Sefirot in Yetzirah, through natural fear and love. In them are clothed the 10 Sefirot of Atzilut. And this is our chart. This is what Bob said before. The Malchut of any given world becomes the Keter of the following world. So the Keter, let's say that this is looking at the world of Bria, right? This Keter up here would be the Malchut of Atzilut, which is one level up. And this Malchut down here would be the Keter of Yetzirah, one world down. It's a big chain.
Actually, not just one level. It's the highest level, the world of emanation.
Well,
It's all godliness, right?
It's all godliness. There's worlds higher than that, though. So, again, very difficult for us to describe, of course.
But we're not going there.
No,
We
let's
can't.
stick with what we have. I'm sure that's plenty.
Yeah.
So, in each world, it's all contained within this Sefirot, which are totally united with God in the world of Atzilut. So let's take an example. How about Malchut of Asiya? It's the lowest Malchut you could find, right? It comes primarily as it's emanated through Chokhmah. It all starts with Chokhmah. Everything starts with Chokhmah, right? So this Chokhmah gets its energy from Keter of Asiya. Keter of Asiya is Malchut of Yetzirah. So you just did that. Just do that again. It comes from Chokhmah of Yetzirah, which comes from Keter of Yetzirah, which is Malchut of Bria. And that comes from, ultimately, Atzilut, all the way up. So perfect unity of godliness exists within all of these. It's just we have a more filtered, even more filtered approach by the time we get down to our level. that make sense a little bit?
A little bit.
So if you are serving God with instinctual love and fear and you end up in Yetzirah, you're really connecting with God there, even though it's just instinctual. Because God is everywhere, right? His sphirot, his attributes are everywhere. Okay. So in them are clothed the 10 sphirot of Atzilut. This is the 10 sphirot of Bria and Yetzirah and Asiya. In them are, inside of all of that, is the 10 sphirot of Atzilut, the highest level, which are totally united with God, completely united with them. While the 10 sphirot of Atzilut are absolutely united with their eminent and self, Yisbarach, the blessed, the infinite one, blessed is He. The souls, on the other hand, are not absorbed into the godliness of these 10 sphirot. They don't go all the way up to God because they would be nullified, right? They wouldn't be able to remain independent entities. So the people are remaining, the souls are remaining, the service connects with God. And thereby the people connect with God. Souls, on the other hand, are not absorbed into the godliness of the 10 sphirot, but are stationed in the Heichalot, in the chambers. And again, if we're talking about the chambers of Bria, Yetzirah, and the Gan Eden, what does your chamber look like in Gan Eden? It's a palace, right? It's amazing, beautiful, wonderful, incredible. This is Gan Eden we're talking about here. It's better than the Florida Keys. So, and what do they do there in these palaces? They enjoy the effulgence of the Shekhinah, the light of the Ein Sof Yisbarach. They enjoy the presence of God revealed to some extent there, the infinite God revealed in these palaces or in these chambers in the higher heavens, right? My Father's house has many rooms, which is united with the 10 sphirot of Bria or Yetzirah, whichever world you're talking about, it being the very glow of their very Torah and service for schar mitzvah, as we will soon learn and repeat. So again, we talked about these chambers, palaces,
The reward of
because the reward of a mitzvah is a mitzvah. Schar mitzvah. We're gonna hit that again. So we have the different worlds. We have your station in this world. In your station is a chamber, a palace, a heichel. And outside of this palace, if it's Bria, you'll have angels standing looking in. If it's Yetzirah, you might have them inside. I guess that's enough for that. And again, it ends here with schar mitzvah. Mitzvah is a very important thing to remember. If you could just remember that, that'd be great. Schar mitzvah means the reward of a mitzvah is a mitzvah. And so the reward of a mitzvah is the very mitzvah itself. So the idea is, if a mitzvah is our chance to engage in intimate unity with God, right, the reward is right there. That's why our sages in the Talmud say, better is 1 hour of teshuvah and mitzvot in this world, better is 1 hour of repentance and good deeds in this world than a whole lifetime in the world to come. Because here we actually have a chance to unite with God in a way that we couldn't later, because later is the time of reward, not the time of this level of connection. And again, most of us waste a lot of it because we don't feel it. And how tragic is that? Also, the reward of the mitzvah is the mitzvah itself. We talked earlier that when you do the mitzvah, you're making a station for yourself in Garden Eden, in the Garden of Eden, in the world to come. So by doing the mitzvah, that mitzvah that you did becomes the reality by which you enjoy the world to come. So why do you want to do more and more mitzvahs? Because then you have more and more ways to enjoy the world to come. So it sounds like pretty good, right? Or you could limit yourself and say, no, I just want to enjoy this section of the world to come. And this will be nice.
Connect to God, too, at that time, and enjoy it now, too.
And you could even enjoy it now, too. If you, again, that takes a lot of intellect and a lot of emotion to be able to, that's the long, shorter way. Talking about this stuff, thinking about this stuff, understanding this stuff, eventually is going to change the way we feel about it to the extent that we can actually appreciate it down here, too. Which is a great challenge. That's why it's the long, shorter way. Right? Okay, we're going even higher. Ready? Buckle your seatbelts.
Take a deep breath.
Take a deep breath, fill your coffee. We're almost done. We have like 2 more pages, I think.
Almost done halfway.
Halfway. Okay, moving on.
This could be a 2-week chapter.
Do you ever do an intermission kind of thing?
No. It makes it very difficult for the camera.
Yeah, because
You
that's
can't
running.
just turn it off and turn it back on?
We'd have to do 2 separate uploads, and that means time and energy and effort.
Okay.
The world of Atzilut, however, is beyond the intelligence, comprehension, and understanding of a created intellect, because Chochmah, Bina, and Da'at of the Ein Sof, of the Infinite One, Yisbarach, are united with it therein in a perfect unity. Again, Atzilut, everything is God. A profound and wonderful unity which infinitely excels in degree and form that which is found in the world of Bria. It's a totally different universe in Atzilut. Totally different. And all of the created intellect, all of our intellect in the world could not possibly fathom the stuff that goes on there. It's too much to handle, right? This is like direct godliness. It's too much for us. We have no frame of reference to be able to understand it or tolerate it.
Well, there's a lot in that statement.
There is. So feel free to go back and review. And God is infinitely, wonderfully one in Atzilut. For in the latter, in the world of Bria, they descended to give light by means of tzimtzumim. We talked about tzimtzumim before. What's a tzimtzum?
It's a partial concealment.
A concealment, a contraction, a curtain, a veil, something which hides this blinding light that is Atzilut, right? So the created intellect should be able to receive from them Chabad, Chochmah Bina V'Dat, to know God and to understand and apprehend something of the light of the Ein Sof, the Infinite One, Yisbarach Blessed Be He. To the extent possible for created intellects, which are limited and finite, of course, without their being dissolved in their existence and ceasing completely to exist as created beings, only to revert to their source and root, which is the godliness from whence they came. Which is exactly what we said about the Moshe thing, right? Moshe couldn't see God's face because if he got that close, he would dissolve out of existence. It would be too much for him to handle. He would not be able to remain an independent, separate entity. He would see that inside all of his guts, it's really a godly soul, a godly battery pack that's making him even exist. That realization would cause him to cease to exist. Does that make a little sense?
Scary, yeah.
Well, that's why God makes all these concealments. That's why God even makes a Satan, because it enables us to have what we feel is an independent existence. And if we feel like we're independent from God, we can have a relationship with Him. Because you can't have a relationship with yourself. Like I try to tell ourselves all the time. Right? Sorry. All right. It is this tzimtzum, this contraction, this concealment, this veil, that is the cause of the glow of Chabad and of the Ein Sof Yisbarach, the glow of wisdom, understanding, and knowledge of the Infinite One, blessed be He, illuminating the souls of the world of Bria. It is very different in the world of Atzilut, where they, Chabad, wisdom, understanding, and knowledge, are not subject to the same extent of tzimtzum, vastly less so, right? Much less concealment going on in Atzilut than there is in Bria. So imagine Asiya, right? We can't even see God here. Consequently, it is impossible for created intellects to apprehend them. It's too much in the world of Atzilut. It's too godly. We can't comprehend it.
Without their being dissolved. Actually, it goes true for everything in this physical world. Could not exist without the Tzimtzum shielding the blazing glory of God's, the light of the Ein Sof.
Right.
It could not. It would be nullified.
Right. And that's why they say,
But that's why in God's mercy, love, wisdom, He wanted to create a physical world,
right,
and physical beings in it, and shielded them from that blazing glory,
right,
so they could exist.
absolutely right, 100%. Which is amazing. That is why no thought of the created intellects can apprehend anything there. In Atzilut, it's too godly. We just don't have any way to tolerate it or understand it. Hence, it is the abode of the great tzaddikim, the great righteous people. And we're not just saying tzaddikim like, okay, he's a righteous guy. We're saying great tzaddikim, Abraham, Isaac, Moshe, whose service supremely transcends even the quality of love and fear which are derived from understanding and knowledge of his greatness, Yisbarach. Just as the world of Atzilut is far beyond the understanding and knowledge of a created intellect. Again, Atzilut means emanation. It's all one with God there. We're not even level of creation here. But the Alter Rebbe is saying that there are people that are there, or that can go there and tolerate it. Who are these people? The great tzaddikim. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Moshe, David, Shlomo. I don't know. Right? The Baal Shem Tov. So, where did I leave off? Indeed, is that right?
That is why no thought of the
I think we're here at Indeed.
The service, their service.
Indeed, their service has been truly in the nature of a vehicle, a merkava, to the Ein Sof Yisbarach, to the Infinite One, blessed be He, being nullified to Him in existence and absorbed into His light, Yisbarach, blessed be He, that they and everything they possessed, through the fulfillment of the Torah and the mitzvot, in the way which has been said about the patriarchs, that they were truly a chariot of God, because throughout their lives, this was their service. So, how do you get access to Atzilut, where you would just become nullified if you stood there? You'd be nullified here. That's what Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob were. Totally nullified. They made no choices of their own. They made no decisions. They had no passions of their own. They were just here to do whatever God had, whatever it is. Abraham, I need you to go and bind your son and offer him like you're going to offer him like a sacrifice. Abraham's like, okay, I'll get up first thing in the morning and do it. Like, no problem, God. This is what you say. This is what's happening, you know? Because they served God like that here, A, they gave us tremendous merit because we're their children, even if we're grafted in. And B, they have access to a higher level of godly revelation on high. Because their service, their kavana was so selfless. It wasn't because I understand God, I fear God, I understand that He's the boss, He's in charge, so I should do what He wants. Or I understand that God, who God is so magnificent, I love Him, I just want to help Him and do His stuff and connect with Him. That sounds great. Nothing like that with the service of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, or Moshe. For them, it was all, I am just a soul that's carrying a little bit of godliness here in the world. Whatever I need to do is whatever God has for me. It says this in the book of John with Mashiach, right? He says, I can't do anything except that which the Father says. What does that mean? It means He's a chariot to God. It means He's not a real person Himself. He's just godliness in a meat suit, right? So, I mean, sorry. That was probably a little crude. I apologize. But they weren't independent of themselves, right? Their existence was primarily here just to serve God, and they knew it. And as such, they have access to Atzilut.
See, that crazy phrase got the point across.
And that's what we call the level of a chariot, right? A chariot. As Rabbi Gordon of blessed memory said, a car has no will of its own. If your car develops a will of its own, you should call your mechanic immediately, right? The car does what the driver tells it to. That's Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and Moshe, etc. But as for him whose soul's root is too small to contain such a perfect service, so as to be nullified and absorbed in his light Yisbarach by constant service, but only at such intervals as which times are propitious on high, for example, during the Amida. So what are we talking about here in this paragraph?
Prayer.
What?
Prayer.
Sure. Whose prayer?
Whose prayer?
Yeah.
Our,
Him whose
our,
soul.
our prayer.
Our prayer, like a
whose soul is
less than
smooth.
Abraham, Isaac,
Yes.
and Jacob, right? You're not this amazing, great, perfect Tzaddik Gomer, right? You're just a regular,
Shmo.
well, a regular guy, right? A regular guy, and, my soul is not lofty enough, it's not rooted high enough to be able to contain this level of service of God. I do, in fact, think about myself, and I have my own opinions and stuff like that. And that means I'm not that guy, right? Mm-hmm. So as such, my service is going to be lower. It's not going to be in Atzilut. It's going to be in Bria, if on a good day, right?
You're in Bria. The rest of us are thinking a little further down.
That's okay, It's a good spot. That's where the angels are, right? So, however, we can still reach that spot, as we said earlier in Tanya, and these propitious special times, which are, for example, when we say the Amida. When we say the Amida, this very, very holy prayer, this very special time, this is when we are, what are the characteristics of the Amida? What do we do in the Amida that we don't do for other prayers?
Stand.
We stand.
Speak in an undertone.
We whisper.
And we are, the proper kavana is to understand you're standing before the throne.
Right, face to face with God, right? That's the idea. When you're reading the Amida, it's like you're really right there. So that's why we bow,
That makes him cry.
right? Because it's beautiful.
You're so
And
cute.
that's a high level of holiness to be able to handle that. And the more we understand it, the more our emotions will be charged to be able to respond in a similar way. Bizrat Hashem, with God's help. That's the long, shorter way. That's Chabad.
Mm-hmm.
So, in the Amida, we stand, we're quiet, we open up. Wow. Has it been a long day or what? How do we open up? Svatai tiftach ufi yagiti elatecha. You should open my lips, and then my mouth will declare your praise. Right? I can't even speak, God. You should open my lips.
Oh.
This is how we start it.
Oh, that's the pre.
When are these prayers?
The Amida, 3 times a day. 4 on Shabbos, 5 on Yom Kippur.
That's the preface,
Yeah,
if you will.
to start.
How much of the Yemeni do you read? I mean, that's the whole.
All 18 blessings, yeah.
Okay.
Every day, 3 times a day.
There's a couple of ways to do it.
Oh, really?
Well, really, there is, because the 18 blessings themselves are
The Alter Rebbe, whose book we are studying
I
right here,
know.
says we should say every word of the Amida.
and not move
And
anything around.
Not move it around or nothing. So, anyways, more on that later. So we're talking about the Amida. This is a time where we can actually kind of reach and taste a little bit of this world about Tzilut. And it's interesting if you, like Jacob's ladder, right? They say, and this is a big teaching of Chassidus, that the way that we pray, we go through the Siddur, the prayer book every day, it starts, this is Jacob's ladder.
We ascend the ladder.
So you start by saying, thank you, God, for letting me wake up. Thank you for the mountains and the trees and the hills and all the physical stuff. It's great. And then we do the blessings before the Shema, and we're talking about the angels, right? Oh, God, the angels are so awesome. The angels are really awesome, but you chose us instead because you love us. How cool are we, right? And then Bria, we're in the Shema itself where we're saying, I have this understanding that I am supposed to love God and fear God, and I understand here means listen, get it, right? I understand that I'm supposed to have this connection with God, and I would die for him. And then what do we do after the Shema? We say the Amida. And the Amida is this part where we don't even speak. We're silent because God is everywhere, and Atzilut, he is.
There's a lot of pages between them.
Well, they're the blessings before and after the Shema. And but that's the general scheme of things, right? So this Jacob's ladder is our form of prayer. This is how we get up to Atzilut, get up to the Amida. And hopefully we can come back down without spraining an ankle or something, So, special propitious times during the prayer of the Amida, which is in Atzilut, especially when making genuflections. So let's just go ahead and say bowing. When we do the bowing during the Amida, there's several times that we bow, 4 or 5 times that we bow, right? That doesn't happen in any other prayer. We're not, we give it a little shuckle, but we don't
There's
bow.
18 times on every Baruch Atah, right?
No. So the first one,
Well, yeah, the first
the
blessing.
first blessing has it at the beginning and end of it. And then the second to last
the God
blessing
of
has at the beginning
Abraham,
and blessing.
the God of.
No,
No?
one bow.
That's what?
That's one bow.
Oh, I thought it was.
No, it says
I thought there was a half a dozen.
Bend
but
the knees
They're
at-
in there first.
it says bend the knees at blessed,
Okay.
bow at Atah, are you,
Are you?
and then come back up for Hashem, right? So
So
that your eyes should meet Hashem on the page when you come back up.
And this, you say, is only in the first or in
At the
all
begin-
the blessings?
Just 4 times throughout the whole Amida, not counting the Osei Shalom at the end.
Because you go, blessed are you.
But there's no
18
line there that says that you should.
18 times. Well,
In fact, the third of those 4 bowings isn't even a bend the knee and bow. It's just a bow. And there's a reason for that, too.
okay. Well, see, and I don't spend a lot of time reading footnotes when I'm praying.
I should tell you how to do it. But that's the idea, especially when we're bowing. What's the symbolism of bowing in general? What's the idea? Why do we bow?
It's reverence.
Reverence, right? We walk around all day like, oh, my intellect is so up here, and I'm all awesome, and I'm all tough, and you can't even come close to me, and you touch my car, break at your face, and all this other stuff, right? And then we come to God. It's this idea of humility, like I'm lower than you, right? We only do that during the Amida. For bowing, genuflection is characteristic of Atzilut. I am not, he is. That's what Atzilut is. Let's see here, as explained in Pri Chaim on the prayer and the inauguration of Shabbos, since it symbolizes self-nullification in his light, Yisbarach Vihi, like we just said, to be accounted as nothing at all before him. Again, Svatai Tiftach, you should open my lips, and then I can declare your praise. So we're accounted as nothing at all before him. In such a case, therefore, the principal abode of his soul is in the world of Bria, right? Because you're doing this with an intellectual understanding. And only occasionally at propitious times does his soul actually ascend to Atzilut, to this higher level. And this is by virtue of what we call Mayan Nukvin. As is known to the students of Kabbalah, Mayan Nukvin means feminine waters. It's a Kabbalistic term which corresponds with us connecting to God in a way that says pursue us. We do that by doing mitzvahs. We do that with kavana and focus in prayer. So if you're like really into it and you're doing the Amida right, your soul can even get to Atzilut, is basically what this is saying.
Actually, the footnote sends you back to chapter 10.
As we talked before.
Yeah.
So chapter 10 talks about the tzaddik. Okay, back to schar mitzvah. The reward of a mitzvah is the mitzvah itself. Again, the act that we have the opportunity to be with God in an intimate way and to serve Him and do tikkun olam, that should be awesome enough for us. But in reality, we're also making our portion in the world to come. We are going to be able to understand and appreciate godliness and the world to come through the mitzvah we did. That's why it's so important to actually get the mitzvah done. And all the intention in the world isn't going to get you a spot in that portion. Yes, you'll have eternal life, but you're not going to be able to appreciate it as much as if you did more mitzvah. And that's the end. So, schar mitzvah means that from the reward, we know its essence and rank. So the Alter Rebbe is taking it even deeper. But we do not concern ourselves with esoteric matters. What do we concern ourselves with? The esoteric matters are related to the great tzaddikim, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, who are on the level of merkaba, of vehicle, of chariot. What is our concern based on the Torah? What does the Torah says is our primary concern? It says in Deuteronomy, the hidden things are for God. It's the revealed things that are for us and for our children to observe forever so that we can have a portion in the world to come. That's what it says right in Deuteronomy. So our concern is with the matters that are revealed to us. That's a quote directly from the Bible, from the Torah, to which every man should aspire. So we understand here, says the Alter Rebbe. Remember what we're reading here is Sefer Shel Beinan in the book of the intermediate. We're regular guys here. We're trying to serve God on a level that's appropriate for us. This is what we're trying to do. So don't try to sneak yourself into Atzilut. Try to be the best you. When you get up to heaven, they're not going to ask you, why weren't you more like Moshe Rabbeinu? They're going to ask you, why weren't you more like Jim, right? So, our concern is with matters which are revealed to us. We know that God gave us the Torah, and He told us to do the mitzvahs. That's what's revealed to us. To which every man should aspire, to know with certainty that the essence and the quality of the divine service, with a conscious fear and love in one's heart, stemming from understanding and knowledge of the greatness of the Ein Sof Yisbarach. It says we shouldn't waste our faith on stuff we can understand. If you can understand it, then just understand it. Save your faith for that which we can't possibly understand, right? That's called maturity. Stemming from understanding and knowledge of the greatness of the Ein Sof, the Infinite One, Yisbarach, blessed be He, which has its place in the 10 Sefirot of Bria, as we've been saying this whole chapter, and in the service, and of the service with natural love and fear in mind, which is in the 10 Sefirot of Yetzirah, as we've been saying this whole chapter. But a service without inspiration of fear and love, even in the mind, in a conscious state. That is to say, without arousing the natural love and fear which is hidden in the heart of every Jew and convert and everyone who's connected to the idolatry, and bringing it out from concealment of the recesses of the heart into the conscious mind and the latency of the heart, at any rate at all, but it remains hidden. You did this with no kavana whatsoever. Nothing. It remains hidden in the heart as at birth, as it was prior to the service. Such a service remains below, in the world called separateness, called externality of the worlds, having no power to rise and be absorbed in His unity, Yisbarach. In the 10 Holy Sefirot, which is written in the Tikkunim, that without fear and love, it cannot soar upward, nor can it ascend and stand before God. We're talking about our mitzvah, we're talking about our Torah study, we're talking about our prayer. It's all about connecting with God. It will not be able to get there without kavana. So we said in this chapter, very clearly at the beginning, we're going to tell you what it means, why kavana is so important. What does it mean? Next chapter, we're going to get rid of a lot of the Kabbalistic language, and we're going to talk about on a more basic metaphorical level. But here's what we just said right here, and this is actually the foundation of the next chapter. Without fear and love, it can't soar upward, nor can it ascend and stand before God. So what does that mean? We have our chart here. What's it mean?
Place of understanding.
Right.
You're down
It
here,
rises-
you do a mitzvah.
Rises above our world.
You do a mitzvah by rote, you don't even think about it, right? Where does it end up? It's trapped down here in this firmament, under this firmament.
Bounces off the ceiling.
Bounces off the ceiling. So you,
Like this story about this house is
Synagogue.
full of prayer.
yeah, the Baal Shem Tov visited a synagogue at, I believe it was in Germany, and they did everything on time, they did everything perfect, everything was, with that German precision. And the Baal Shem Tov comes in, and he's a very spiritual guy, a tzaddik. He says, this house is filled with prayers. And the rabbi there is like, well, thank you very much. And Baal Shem Tov means they didn't go to the throne. That means they're still down here. They're beli kavana. They're without kavana.
They're not rising up, soaring.
So without kavana, they don't soar. They don't come up. If you have instinctual love and fear, a little bit of kavana, you realize I'm a child of God and I got to do this. I don't think about it further than that. That's Yitzira. You broke through the firmament. Congratulations. If you intellectually perceive and understand the love and fear relationship you have with God, you can push it up to Berea even. So this is what we've been talking about the whole thing. This is the technology of how it works. This is why a mitzvah without kavana is like a body without a soul. Because otherwise it stays down here where it doesn't accomplish. It cannot ascend. It cannot soar upward. It cannot stand before God. And this is the concept of the next chapter where we're going to talk about this and we're going to turn it into a metaphor that love and fear of God are like the wings of a bird. A bird can live 120 bird years or however long a bird lives without wings. You can clip a bird's wings so it can't fly. But even though it's alive, what can't it do now without wings?
What is bird supposed to do?
It can't fly. It cannot soar upwards. So the love and fear are like the wings that lets your mitzvah, your Torah study, your prayer soar upwards. If you don't have it, the mitzvah's alive, but it's not going anywhere, right? It can't fly up. This is so even if the service is not strictly lishma, not for its own sake. That is, for some ulterior motive, chas v'sholem. So you do a mitzvah because you study Torah because Dad said he's going to take you to Disney World if you study Torah, right? Not the best reason to study Torah. You should study the Torah because it's God's Torah.
Next sentence. You see that it's quoted from Isaiah.
Yep. It also applies to the service which is described as this verse in Isaiah, 29:13 of Isaiah. Their fear toward me, God says, has become like a trained human precept. It's become habit. You just do the mitzvah because this is what I've been doing for years. This is what Bubby told you to do. This is what you do. I'm going up to the sink and I'm grabbing a glass of water and I say, Baruch Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam shachani b'davaro. You know, you say the blessing and you drink the water and you didn't think about God at all during that, right? I mean, there's a love and fear that's in there, but it's buried so you didn't bring it out at all, right? You did it by habit. I know before you I say this. I know after I say that, right? Whatever the situation is. That's what a lot of the prayers in Judaism we've made kind of like longer and expanded, said the sages, because how could you not think about God when we've been doing this for 20 minutes now, right? It's when you do it too quick, it's very easy to not have perfect kavanah.
You're missing rungs of the ladder.
You're missing rungs of the ladder. There's no leapfrogging in godliness. So, their fear towards me has become like a trained human precept. It's become habit, rote, lip service. That is to say, it is a matter of habit, which a person has become accustomed to since infancy, having been habituated and trained by his father or teacher to fear God and to serve him, but he doesn't really do it for its own sake. For performance truly for its own sake cannot possibly be without arousing at least the innate fear and love, the ahava misuteret, the hidden love that's within us as an inheritance from the patriarchs and matriarchs. You got to at least arouse that, bringing them out of concealment of the heart into the consciousness of the mind, at least a little bit. You got to do something, right? At any rate, for just as a person does nothing for his companion, and this is a fundamental axiom of Chassidus, you don't do anything for anybody else if it's their will, unless you love or fear that person. Someone says, you can go to the store for me and do this. You say, go yourself. Get it yourself, right? Why? Absolutely not am I going to go. You do go if you love the person or if you're afraid of that person, right? Give me all your money. No, get your own money, right? Give me all your gun right now. All right, you can have the money, right? Because I'm afraid of the gun. God forbid that we should never be put in a situation like that. Or mom says, hey, listen, would you take out the trash? My elbow hurts or whatever. Or, because I love her, whatever. So, nobody does anything just to carry out his will without recalling and arousing any love or fear for him in his mind and thought at the latency of his heart at least. People don't do stuff for other people unless you love that person or you are afraid of that person. Nor is love alone called service, by the way. You can't just have love and no fear. Without at least the lower level of fear, yirat hata, which is latent in the heart of every Jew and everyone attached to the olive tree, grafted in, as will later be amplified, and that's going to be in chapter 41. So at the very, very basic level, you need to serve God with the understanding that he's big and in charge and he has expectations and I got to toe the line, right? That's basic fear. However, when a person is engaged in his service, truly not for its own sake, but for some personal motive, Dad said if I study Torah and I pass the test, I'll go to Disney World, right? Some personal motive, with a view to his own glorification, for example, to become like a scholar. You know, I'm going to study all this Torah and I'm going to become a rabbi and get all this respect, right? So you want to become a scholar, and that's your motive, which originates in the Klipat Noga, in the mundane impurity of the world, clothes itself in his Torah, and the Torah is temporarily in a state of exile in the Klipa until he repents, since repentance brings healing to the world. So the Torah that you studied, again, we said it's trapped down here in Asiya. It can come out of there. It can become untrapped. It can be unbound. It can become freed and able to elevate. How do you do that? Teshuvah. Teshuvah heals everything. Therefore, the rabbis of blessed memory declared a man should always occupy himself with Torah and precepts, even if it's not for its own sake. Even if you have the wrong intention, you should study Torah anyways. And you should do the mitzvah anyways. Why? Why would you say that? If I had the wrong intention, maybe I shouldn't be doing it. Doesn't it sound logical? Let's read on. For from motives of self-interest, he will come to study and observe for its own sake. The rabbis say in the end of the day, if you study enough Torah, you'll be doing it for the right reason. It'll just happen by itself. This they state with certainty, for ultimately he is bound to do teshuvah, whether in this incarnation or another. It says everybody is going to eventually be, it says the Jewish people are righteous, and all Israel will be saved, and all Israel has a portion in the world to come. So one way or the other, this is going to work itself out that we're all going to say, okay, God, I'm sorry, you were right. And he's going to be like, it's cool. And this is another axiom, because none is rejected by him forever. Nothing that is impure will stay impure forever. This is part of the functionality of Mashiach. To take things, if I could just tangent a little bit here, out of the realm of space and time into a place higher than time. We're actually right in this region here. A place higher and above, supra-rational, way above time, where time doesn't exist. So you could go before the sin, and you could just look at the intention. And that's the functionality of what the sacrifice of Mashiach does for us. It's how it works. More on that later. Last paragraph here. On the other hand, if a person acts without any particular motivation, not for its own sake or for selfish reasons, he does a mitzvah, he studies Torah, but he doesn't have any motivation at all, then it's not contingent upon repentance. He doesn't need to repent for that, because you didn't get all that caught up in the klipa, all up on the physical world, in the impurity of this world. There was no negative side to it, right? There just wasn't a side at all. Mm-hmm. So how do you fix that? As soon as he once again learns this subject, lishma, for its own sake, and he actually does it the right way, then all the knowledge that he learned from the previous ones where he didn't have any intention at all, they all come flooding to the front, and that they all rise at the same time together. So that's like a little mini teshuvah. You didn't repent for anything, you just did it right this time. And that goes true for Torah study and prayer.
It's like a nullification of when you did it. The time.
Right, the time is no longer an issue. Right. So, for example, they say you, throughout the entire year, if you have different parts of, let's say, the Amida, the prayer, right? And some you did with perfect kavana, and the other ones maybe not so much, right? They say if you, throughout the course of a year, from one Yom Kippur to another Yom Kippur, you have pieces that are perfect, God puts them together in such a way that makes it one perfect prayer, and that elevates every prayer that you did. They're all perfect now, because the pieces were there outside of time, right? So every year, if you can get some piece of the Amida right, then all the Amidas you said that year are perfect. And the same is true for Torah study, which is the example Alter Rebbe is bringing right here. Then even that which he had learned without any particular intent conjoins and attaches itself with the study that he's doing today, currently, and it ascends on high together, since it had not yet been invested in any kind of klipa noged. He didn't associate with impurity. There was no selfishness there. There just wasn't any kavana there. There wasn't anything there. Therefore, a man, again, should always occupy himself with studying Torah and doing mitzvahs, because even if you're doing it for the wrong reasons or for no reason, it will eventually end up fine, and it will eventually end up being the right reasons, and will eventually end up elevating and getting you closer to God and building you a portion of the world to come and doing tikkun olam and making straight in this desert a highway for God, and everything will be good, okay? So you should study Torah and do mitzvahs. The same is true, of course, about prayer, which I just said, without kavana, and that's discussed in the Zohar as well. End of chapter 39. So, lots of words, kind of a big chapter, lots of terminology and vocabulary, lots of spiritual stuff. But we told you one thing, essentially, and that's why kavana with your mitzvah, kavana with your prayer, kavana with your Torah study is so important. What is that reason? Simple words.
Elevate you
what's-
before God.
You're exactly right. Because it takes you higher. Your mitzvah, your Torah study, your
I get a Torah
prayer.
point.
Very good.
Absolutely, you
Very
get the
good.
Torah point.
I wasn't sure how to. I wanted to hear the question again because I wasn't sure how to
It elevates higher.
frame the answer to it.
It
That's
ta-
good.
It
That's
takes
very
it to
good.
a higher place. You know, which place
Closer to God.
To God,
and our
right.
relationship with
where exactly does it take us? We just talked about it. It takes us higher, right? The better, the higher, and the higher, the better. So if it's instinctual, it takes us up to this next world, the lower heaven, the lower Garden of Eden. If it's intellectually based, it takes us up to the higher Garden of Eden, the world of Bria. If you're like a super tzaddik, you can go to Atzilut. Even if you're in Bria on Shabbos and Yom Tov, you can get a sneak peek of Atzilut. You can go up this elevator. And if you didn't have any kavana at all, or the wrong kavana, then it's going to be stuck down here in Asiya until you release it somehow. Whether it's through teshuvah or just doing it again the right way. And that's essentially chapter 39. Lots of words, simple concept. Concept is your mitzvah, your Torah study, your prayer. If you do it with kavana, it takes it much higher than it could have gone without it.
8:35.
Well, we started late too.
Oh, that's right.
Questions, comments, concerns? Next week in chapter 40, and I wouldn't discourage you from going back over chapter 39 maybe again and just taking a look at that because, again, lots of terminology there.
Several times.
It could help. Every year when we go through this, it'll be getting clearer and clearer and more illuminating. But in chapter 40, we're going to, again, as we said earlier, use more of a metaphor here. We're going to talk about love and fear, ahava and yira, as the wings of a bird. And again, a bird can live without wings, but it can't fly without wings. So just with the same concept here, the kavana, the love and fear that we have for God, in whatever level, whether it's instinctual or intellectual, will allow our mitzvah, our Torah study, our prayer, to ascend to a higher level. So it's the same concept with more explanation
That kind of
next week.
relates to pretty much everything in life. The more you know
That's so
and
true.
understand, the higher
You'll
your
feel about
conscious level is
Great
about,
application.
Yeah.
about whatever it is.
100% right.
It's like not being ignorant, basically.
Right.
You stay
But being
ignorant,
knowledgeable. And that's, again, a uniquely human thing. Animals don't do it, angels can't do it. So, with that as our outro, I guess, who would like to close us with prayer? I nominate... All right, I'll do it. Rabbona Shalom, Master of the Universe, you are awesome. Your Torah is awesome, your wisdom is awesome, your creation is amazing, and we are in awe of you and everything that you've done for us and how you care for us and all the ladder that you've built for us to be able to reach you with Torah and mitzvot and prayer, and we are supremely thankful of that. We ask that you be with us tonight on our way home, that you bless us with your chokhmah bina v'da'at, your wisdom, understanding, and knowledge, specifically da'at, that we should be able to integrate this knowledge into who we are, to be able to affect the way that we understand you and the world that you've put us in, to be able to change the way that we feel and emote about you, with our love and our fear about you and the world that you put us in here, that we may be able to more aptly and pleasantly do that which you've put us here for, to make this place a fit dwelling place for you. And that all again comes by the long, shorter way, by you giving us this inspiration that we can change the way we understand and change the way we feel, and that can help us to change our garments, that we can more closely and better relate to you and bring Mashiach sooner. We thank you again for everything that you've done for us. We love you. See you next week. Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. Amen.
Amen.
Thanks so much. Join us next week for chapter 40.
Oh, thank you. I don't